So far, we reviewed the absolute value of u, which is defined as if u is positive, you get u back. If u is 0, you get 0 back. And if u is negative, you have to put a negative sign in front of your u. Now the question says, evaluate the definite integral from -1 to 2 of absolute value of x minus x squared dx. So this u is now your absolute value of x minus x squared. Let's break it down a little bit. So my u is x minus x squared, right? The absolute value of x minus x squared can be written as, if x minus x squared is positive, I get this quantity back. If x minus x squared is 0, I get 0 back. And if x minus x squared is negative, I have to put a negative sign in front of this quantity, x minus x squared. So, on which interval x minus x squared is positive, x minus x squared is negative, or it is equal to 0? Let us go back to algebra. This is the quantity that you have, x minus x squared. Let us set it equal to 0 to find the roots. If you factor out x, you get 1 minus x equal to 0. So x is 0, x is equal to 1. So it means that the graph hit x-axis at 0 and 1. We can visualize this, and then we can use the table to check the sign of this quadratic expression. If you look at the graph of x minus x squared, the behavior of the graph is like this. So far we know the graph hit x-axis at 0 and 1. And since the leading coefficient is -1, it means that the graph opens downward. And this is the behavior of your graph. So your y is positive up here, right? Between 0 and 1, your y, or x minus x squared, is positive. Okay, so it helps us to simplify this absolute value a little bit. I'm going to rewrite this absolute value for you. Let me take this and move it down here so we can simplify this guy further, and then we go up to calculate the definite integral. So the absolute value of x minus x squared, if x is in between 0 and 1, you can basically see that if x is in between 0 and 1, which is just this interval here, this is my x. My y is positive. It means that I get x minus x squared back. At which values it is 0? Well, when x is equal to 0 and x is equal to 1, your y value is 0. So when x is equal to 0 or 1, you get 0 back. On which interval it is negative? Well, the y value is negative down here and also here. So if you look at your x-axis, from negative infinity to 0, so if x is less than 0, or if x is more than 1, you get a positive y value. You get a negative y value. It means that you have to multiply it by a negative sign. So you have minus x minus x squared. Very good. it helps us to simplify this graph and this quantity using algebra. So let us go back to our integral. If you try to graph absolute value of x minus x squared, this guy behaves like this. So for the positive part, we don't have any issue. The positive part is this part here. Y value is positive here. We are good. So 0 to 1. For the negative parts, when you take the absolute value, it means that you are looking at the reflection with respect to x-axis. So this is the absolute value of x minus x squared. So from the graph down here, you see, okay, this part had a positive y value. So I'm going to keep it as it is. But for the left-hand side and for the right-hand side, I have to multiply it by a negative sign. You see this negative sign here. We did the algebra, we checked everything. So this guy is flipped with respect to x-axis. Now we can talk about the definite integral. So let's see, from -1 to 2. So my -1 is here. I'm looking at the graph here between -1 to 0. So I'm going to separate this into 3 integrals now. Well, this guy can be written as the integral -1 to 0. And since I multiplied this by a negative sign, this part is x squared minus x. So this absolute value is x squared minus x dx. I'm erasing unnecessary information so we have enough space to write down the integral. The second integral plus is this part here. Let me use a different color for that. Integral between 0 and 1. So you have the definite integral 0 to 1. And this function is x minus x squared. We haven't done anything. Just copy this guy down. X minus x squared dx. And your third integral plus is the definite integral between 1 to 2. 2 is here. For function x squared minus x. Because our y value was down here, we multiply the quantity by negative sign. So as you can see, your new function is written as x squared minus x. So you get x squared minus x dx. X is bounded between 1, 2, 2, 3 separate integrals. Okay, so the rest is basic calculation. This is x cubed divided by 3 minus x squared over 2, as x is ranging between -1 to 0, plus x squared over 2 minus x cubed divided by 3, as x is ranging between 0 and 1. And the third integral is x cubed divided by 3 minus x squared over 2 when x is bounded between 1 and 2. So let me just erase this part. We understood all the steps. We are just ready to do the calculation. So for this integral, if you plug in 0, everything is 0. Minus, if you plug in -1, you get -1 divided by 3 minus a half plus You have a half minus a third minus 0 plus the rest of the integral. You get 8 divided by 3 minus 4 over 2 minus, if you plug in 1, you get a third minus a half. Okay, very good. This guy is equal to, so if you take common denominator, you get negative 5 over 6, or it has a negative sign in front of it. You get 5 divided by 6. And then for the second integral, we have the calculation of 3 minus 2 divided by 6, which is 1 over 6. And the last integral, okay, you probably need more calculations here. 8 divided by 3 minus 2. And when you take common denominator, it becomes negative 1 divided by 6. So you have plus 1 over 6. Perfect. So let us try to see if we can simplify this as much as we can. Okay. So you have 5 divided by 6, and 1 over 6 plus 1 over 6 becomes a third, and you have 8 over 3, so this guy is just 3, and then minus 2, so this is 1, so you have 5 over 6 plus 1, or 11 divided by 6.